Good morning, everybody. My name is Lisa White, and I'm the Health Promotion Manager. Welcome to Coffee Break this morning at 10 o'clock Atlantic Time. Just to give you a little bit of an idea of what we're going to be talking about this morning. On the agenda for this morning, we're going to talk about intercom, so interpersonal communication. And some of the topics we're going to talk about underneath that is what causes conflict, how to raise the issues, and how to have a conversation to sort of work together as a team to solve some of the issues that people might be facing. Just a disclaimer, so the information that I'm going to talk about today is part of the Department of National Defense, so it's not for recording for somebody else to use for profit or for under their name. Some of the information that we might be talking about this morning may not be suitable for children, so this is more for an audience 18 years of age and over. If throughout the program or this morning you have any questions, please feel free to write them down in the comment section. I hope that you can hear me. I'm not sure if you can. If you can't hear me, please let me know. Kenny is behind the camera again this morning, and maybe you'll get a chance to see his forehead. Who knows? I just want to acknowledge this past week. It has been very scary, shocking, sad, tragic, and very emotional for a lot of us, myself included. So
audio was good.
For those of you who are thinking about things, I'm hoping that today or this morning you'll have an opportunity to sort of take your mind off things for a little while. I did post on our Health Promotion Facebook page a few resources for those people who may be struggling, especially with everything that's going on. It's not just what's happened in the last week, it's what's been happening. And even before what's been happening before that. So for a lot of us, this is piling up on top of everything else. And so I actually had to sort myself out just to be able to come on here this morning and to be able to talk a little bit about this. I actually stayed away from the news this morning to make sure that I was in an emotional frame of mind to be able to deliver this sort of topic this morning. So just as a reminder, before we move on, just reach out to the people you love, talk to your family. If you have loved ones in the house, hug them, hold them tight. Take this opportunity to call, FaceTime, anybody you feel that may be needing support, or even for yourself. Secondly, if you are struggling and you need more professional resources, I don't know if you can see this, but for NPF employees on the base, there's the Employee Family Assistance Program, and this is the number for that. It's 1-844-751-2133, and it is on our Health Promotion Facebook page. For Canadian Armed Forces members, we have the Members Assistance Program. It's also for D&D public servants and their families. And the 1-800 number for that is 1-800-268-7708, among many of the resources. But these are sort of the two main ones that we wanted to point out to you. And if you can't remember or you're not sure what resources you might need, just feel free to email Jeanette, myself, or Edith. We're on our Facebook page, and we'll be glad to help you with more additional resources. So the topic today, I thought I'd pick a little bit of information out of our intercom program. It's actually a day-and-a-half program, but what I've decided to do is sort of pick a couple of topics or tips that might be helpful for those of you who have been home. I think I talked a little bit about that a couple of weeks ago. I talked about the ACT principle before Easter. Must be all the decorations I have up. before Easter, and I did talk a little bit about the ACT principle, so accepting the situation that we're short-term in, creating a plan, and taking charge. So that's sort of what we talked about last time. So in saying that, that's, people may have started creating plans and they might be implementing them, but sometimes with everything that's going on and the impacts of what's happened in the last week, of people being at home with their families. Normally, for some families, people are out working, the kids are out of school, the kids are playing with their friends, we are interacting with our friends. There's like an equal balance of in and out of the house. And what tends to happen these days right now, what people are telling me, is that a lot of people are in the home and it's getting long and it's getting hard and it's getting tiring, it's getting emotional, and tensions tend to sometimes build in the home. So what do we do about that? So one of the things we got to figure out is sort of, if there's tension in the home, it could tend to mean that there's conflict. So in your minds, what comes to mind when you think of conflict? So that's something to explore. Normally, if we were in the classroom, we'd have an open discussion about that. But for a lot of people, conflict can indicate that there's a problem. Conflict's not all bad either, right? It can be bad if it's not communicated properly, but sometimes when you notice that there's conflict, it just means we have to work through solutions to come to an understanding that best suits the interests of both parties or the home dynamic. So a lot of the times, if we're looking at what conflict means, it's usually a struggle between two parties, or a group of people, or individuals, or family members, or spouses, when our interests are not necessarily matching, or we're having issues in the family that we haven't brought to light, that we're holding on with, and we are not communicating that with our partners. So in exploring, okay, so what is causing the conflict in the household? So there's a few things that we can sort of look at, a few topic areas that you can explore, because before we start communicating the issues and start working through some of them, we got to have an understanding of what the causes are within our family. So the R stands for relationship. So in that, we have to figure out, so what's going on within our relationship? Is it a negative experience right now? Meaning that, am I having a negative experience? Or is my partner or spouse having a negative experience? Are the kids having a negative experience? So we're looking at that. We're looking at stereotypes. So is there an imbalance between stereotypes within the home? And what I mean by that is roles within the household. So are we stereotypically taking on roles thinking that that's the way it should be, or not? And are we in agreement with some of those roles, right? So if you're taking on roles that you're not happy with or comfortable with, or if your needs are not being met, that could be cause conflict. So are we Thanks, Kenny. I knew you could come through for me. Are there poor or failed communication? So that's sometimes can be the root of that, because if you're not communicating your needs to your partner or to your kids, then your needs will go unmet, and vice versa. Is there a negative repetitive behavior? So in other words, even if you've had a conversation, even with your kids, parenting kids, and you're trying to correct some negative behavior, even with your family members, your spouse, and you've had a conversation, but the negative behaviors tend to keep going on and they haven't been corrected, or they're not, the people that you've talked to about those behaviors aren't making any effort to sort of change some of those negative behaviors, or even work with you on those behaviors, right? Change is not always easy, but the thing of it is, if you can accept that and take ownership of some of your behaviors to your family or your partner and make an honest effort, I think that if we are sort of making that effort, that makes a huge difference. We don't need to be perfect at it, but making that effort to try to improve our negative behavior is important, and it's important for our spouses to know that we're trying to do that. So that's in the relationship piece. You can also add in there parenting. Parenting and parenting styles. Also the dynamics of the relationship. So are you in a blended family? Are you in a family with two military members that are both deploying left and right, or off and on, or on shift work? So what's the dynamics of your family household? too, and how are you parenting children? And is that working for you? What's your parenting style in there? So I'm not gonna lie, I probably took parenting classes 4 times in my relationship before my children left home. I'm in a blended family of 5 kids. When they were younger, we parented a different way. As they grew into teenagers, that's a whole other ball of wax, and so we had to also come together as a team to parent teenagers through that. So that's sort of the R. The S stands for sort of the structure of the family. So you're looking at time. How much time do we have? Do we have enough time? Sometimes people are telling me that there's too much time right now. There's too much time on their hands, and maybe the time that's being filled is not divvied around enough, or it's not quality. So divvied around enough, meaning that if you're in a family that's home a lot, or even if you're in a family where there's people working in and out of the home, it's making time for your family, time as a unit, making time for yourself, personal time, making time for your partner, and then allowing your kids to have their time together and allowing them to have their individual space. We all have to sort of see, how is time impacting our family, and how can we divvy up some of that time? I realize that we also we need to have time to work on conflict, but we also need to have time with each other conflict-free. So you need to try to schedule that in. So what's sort of the structure of your household right now, and are you sort of managing that time within your house appropriately or effectively? You're also looking at money. So financial resources, do you have enough money to buy groceries? Do you have enough money to fix your home? Do you have transportation? So financial health is a huge part of the structure of a family, and can be close to the top for causing conflict in the family. And so evaluating your financial health is important, and that's a big piece of what can cause conflict in a family. And for a lot of us, and well, not for myself, but especially for our Canadian Armed Forces members, being away from their social support. So anytime our military members are deploying or posting to another place, or going on a training course, or on a mission, they are away from their social support systems, and that's actually one of the top stressors for our military members and their families. And that can have an impact and cause, stress and conflict in the family when our military members are away from the home or don't have those social supports close to them. A shout out to them right now, amongst many other frontline workers and all the people who are out there providing services to us. But our Canadian Armed Forces right now are being looked into. They're out in Quebec, they're out in Ontario, they are here as part of supporting what has happened in the last week. Our Canadian Armed Forces are leaving their families in a time of stress and uncertainty and worry to go and take care of us and our country. So that in itself is a huge responsibility for them, and it can be have a huge impact on the family, because when one is gone, the other has to pick up everything, right? And then again, now there's one person missing out of the family who could be a sense of support for the ones that are not home. So the structure of the family can be sort of a cause of conflict. And then we're looking at interests. So I stands for interest. So what are your own personal needs? What are your personal interests? And especially as you go through your relationship, your interests might change. Like when Kenny and I first got together and our children were younger, our interests, we had a lot more similar interests with each other. And then as we got older, and as our kids got older, and as our kids left the home, some of our interests have changed. So you have to sort of explore your interests and see if any of those interests are a part of the conflict, or are they sort of something that you need to explore or to sort of bring each other closer together and have some sort of acceptance of the fact that we have changed as we get older. Another thing is what are our fears, our desires, and what are our concerns as part of our interests? And right now, our interests have probably been heightened in sort of wanting to watch and be on social media. and gluing ourselves to what has happened and what has been going on. And sometimes we need to support each other in sort of bringing ourselves away from some of that information, not to not keep up and figure out what's going on, but if somebody is drawn to this for too long, it could take away from the family dynamics, and it can add stress and anxiety to the person that's in front of the social media or even in front of the TV or whatever you are in. So just sort of keeping an eye on each other, and if this is something that needs to be explored and you need to have a conversation about, then maybe you can work together as a team and a family to sort of come together to sort of say, how can we manage some of the social media? And for kids too, right? Kids can't go out right now. They can't go visit their friends. We can't go visit our friends. So we're looking to social media to visit our friends and to keep up with what's going on. But sometimes that can be very overwhelming. It could have an impact on your sleep as well, having your eyes on that screen. So that can in itself cause some problems in the home and some anxiety. So sort of, if you need to explore that, that could be something that would be part of what you might be talking about. The V stands for values. So what are your values and your beliefs, and how are you raised? What kind of environment are you in? Have your values and your beliefs changed over the years? Or is that a source or a cause of some stress or causing tension in the house if our values and our beliefs have shifted? Because as we become older and as we get educated and as we learn and as we go through life, our foundations for our values from which we grew up in, they sometimes change, right? And if our partner's not changing with us, then we don't want to change anybody's personal values or beliefs, but we want to have an understanding and acceptance of those. So maybe if it's sitting wrong in the pit of our stomach about maybe that our values are not really matching up, maybe that's something we want to take a look at and have that acceptance that our values and beliefs may be different in certain areas, and that's okay, right? And underneath our values too, and maybe even underneath our interests, comes expectations. And I find that sometimes just clearing up expectations can have a huge sense of relief and teamwork if we can sort of evaluate our expectations. So what I mean by that is my expectations that I have for my kids, my family, my friends, my coworkers, are they known, for one? Are they realistic? And are they being met? So are they known, are they realistic, and are they being met, are sort of those three things. And for the other people. So my colleagues, my friends have expectations of me. Kenny has expectations of me. My kids have expectations of me. And are they realistic? Do I know what they are? And are they being met? So that sometimes if those are out of order or are not in line, that could be a cause for conflict. And then the last one is facts and data. Here is where we look at like a lack of info or too much info. We're looking at schedules and timing. So if you've got a lot of things going on in your home and we're not communicating the facts about what's happening or the times or the dates, you were supposed to pick Johnny up after school for hockey or whatever it might be, whatever dynamics there were when it comes to time and schedules and things like that. Does everybody have the facts straight? Do we have all the information? Sometimes it can just be allowing somebody enough time to get out what they want to say to you and give you the facts and give you the information about what they're trying to tell you. So if you're not allowing time for your partner to do that, or if you're not doing that, the information and the facts are not known to each other, which can cause some concern. And also the interpretation. So sometimes, and that could be a miscommunication, so sometimes if you're talking amongst your partner, we're not understanding each other properly, we're misunderstanding each other, our perception is off, our interpretation is not the same. And even if you can slow down a conversation and clear that up a little bit, you might come to understand that you're both thinking the same thing, it's just the way you were conveying it with each other was off, right? So those are some of the causes. So taking a look at what may be causing some conflict in your home and sort of taking inventory of that. You might have a lot of things that are in all these areas that I've mentioned that you're thinking about. So like I said last week, is you got to kind of jot things down for yourself. Take a look and see, and sort of what is the most important thing in your life or in your family that you feel needs to be addressed first, and start from there. Don't feel like you have to conquer everything in 24 hours, right? Having a conversation about one or two of the things that you want to talk about, bring those things to attention of your other person, but you don't have to do all of them at the same time. So, how do we do that? We got to learn how to raise the issue. That sometimes in itself can be one of the most important things that you can do, because if you don't raise the issue, well, it might cause more conflict in the home. So what we're trying to do, if you've got some things, you've got some issues that you're sitting with, that you want to have a conversation with your family about, or your partner, just bringing up the issue in itself takes some delicacy. So what you want to pay attention to is you want to pay attention to the time and the place and the date at which you're going to raise the issue that you want to have a conversation with your spouse about. It's probably not the best time for me to go out when Kenny's on top of his shed fixing it to raise an issue, because he's in the middle of doing something, he's focusing on what he's doing, or maybe when he comes in he's tired, he's worked all day. So you're looking at some filters before you sort of raise the issue. So you're looking at things like halt. What halt? I don't have enough paper for that, but what that means is hungry, angry, lonely, tired. So are there any filters, distractions in there that it may impact how you raise an issue and how somebody's mood is doing too as well? I like to raise issues at work on Fridays. I find that most people are happier on Friday. So for me, that's a time at work that I might raise an issue, potentially, depending on how much time it needs to take to get through that. But as a family and as yourself, you need to sort of look through the structure of your family and determine when the best time would be for you to raise an issue where you can have a slight conversation about why and what you'd like to talk about. So when you're doing that, something that can help, I know I'm full of acronyms, but if you can remember some of them, it could help, is the desk principle. So what the desk principle is, and I find this helpful, this is actually from our Managing Angry Moments program. So what you're trying to do here is you're trying to be able to state an issue that you're having some, concern about. You want to make sure that you're doing it in a natural and non-accusatory way with the other person. You want to make sure that you explain the importance of the issue and what it means to you. And then you want to make sure that you want to have an agreement amongst you and your partner that you're going to set some time aside for you and your partner to navigate through that issue together as a team and come to a solution that best suits both of your interests. So what the D stands for is describe the behavior. So, for example, I'll give you an example on how you can do that. This has to do with cleaning the house, and one spouse cleaning the house and the other spouse not when company's arriving. So this is Henry, okay? The last time my brother came to visit, I cleaned the entire house by myself. So that's a way in which you could sort of raise that issue up yourself. But the way you don't want to do it is, you never help me clean the house whenever we have company. That would be the way you wouldn't want to raise that issue. Okay, so being in a non-judgmental way, the last time my brother Henry came to visit, I cleaned the house on my own. Okay, so kind of that's an easier way to sort of, that's the D part. The E part is you want to express your reaction and your feelings and thoughts about the issue. So, as a result, I felt exhausted and angry. So when Henry came to visit and I found myself, doing most of the homework or housework, I felt exhausted and I felt angry. And you notice there's a lot of I statements in there. I know I'm changing the sentences a little bit, but just to add fluency to it. And then you want to specify what you need. So I would like for the two of us to sit down and have a conversation about house cleaning when people are coming to visit the house. So you're sort of specifying what you need in a non-judgmentary way to sort of not put the person in a defensive. And then the C stands for what the consequences would be if you get your needs met. So this is what will happen if you get your needs met. And this is the consequence. If we work together, we can get it done faster, and I will be less tired and less irritable. Okay, so I know it wasn't quite fluid, but if I was to go fluidly through it, so the first is describe the behavior, express your reaction, specify what you need, and the consequences of what happens. So I'll try to do it without looking down too much, but the last time that Henry came to visit, I found myself doing all the housework on my own. As a result of that, I felt tired and exhausted and cranky. What I'd like to see happen is if the two of us can work together and clean the house, that way it would get done faster and I would be less irritable and less angry. If we can work together to do that, I feel that, I screwed that up a little bit. If we can work together as a team to do that, it will get done faster. I think I said that already. I kind of combined them all together. But that you kind of get an idea of what I'm trying to say. So this desk can help you a little bit with sort of raising the issues there when you're trying to have a conversation. But just don't forget, when you're raising the issues, okay, you want to ask your partner, when can we have a conversation about this? What's a good time, maybe when the kids are in bed, or maybe on a Sunday afternoon when they're out playing with their friends. I know they can't play with their friends right now, but you're going to sort of decide when's the time that we can have a conversation after we've raised the issue. Okay? Well, that was a little bit sketch, but that's okay. Okay, so now that we know this, now that we've raised the issue and we decided, we know what time we're going to do it, we know when, where, what, how we're going to do it, then it's like, well, how do I go through this issue with my partner? How do I explore this? What would be some tips on how to go through that as a couple? So, one of the models that I like to use, and one of the models we do use in our intercom program, is called IBCC. So what it means is interest-based communication by collaboration. So it's sort of like having a collaborating conversation, or you could call it collaborative communication model. So we want an interest-based communication through collaboration, and that's sort of what we want to use to sort of navigate through a conversation, because we're at the point now where we're sitting with our spouse or our family, and we're working through an issue, and we're both together, and now we're going to have a conversation about what's going on in the issue that has been raised. So here's some things to do, and here's some things not to do in your conversation before I take you through the roadmap of how to go through that. So some of the things to do in a conversation with your spouse or your partner is you kind of want to be an active listener. So what that means, and I think a lot of you know what that means, is just that we don't always do that. You want to be able to slow down a conversation. You want to be able to use some skills like paraphrasing. So if somebody's talking, you want to slow down a conversation, allow them to talk, because what we tend to do while we're having a conversation, especially if we're very emotional about an issue that we're talking about, we tend to think about what we're going to say without hearing what the person is actually saying to us. So you need to slow down, you need to listen, active listen, and if you can paraphrase back a couple of the things that the person is saying to you, that allows them to feel validated and that you understand what they are telling you. Because it's very important that we feel validated and we feel understood. Okay, understood in the fact that I understand the facts and the data that you're telling me. I may not understand completely the situation that you're in, but I do understand the information that you are telling me. Okay, and you want to kind of say it back to the person using some of the words that they have said to you. Reflecting. So it's important that another way to validate somebody is to reflect back to them too, maybe some of the issues that you're hearing and actually the feelings around the issue. So what I'm sensing is, this is how you're feeling and this is the issue, right? So you're sort of reflecting the feelings around the issue and asking that person how they're doing with that. So reflecting back, the feeling, the issue, picking that out when someone's talking to you tells that person that you're actually listening to them. You want to be able to let them know that you're paying attention. So reflecting is good, because if you can reflect back a feeling, then they know that you have feelings and you're validating the feelings that they have. Empathic approach. So empathy versus sympathy. I find that a little bit of sympathy is okay, especially if you're trying to add context or a connection between the other person. For example, sympathy in this time right now might be an understanding that we're both going through a hard and difficult time with the situation that has just happened or what's been going on, or empathizing or sympathizing with, we're both tired, with we've been parenting, the kids have been home, or whatever it might be. It's okay to sympathize a little bit because you draw in a connection with the other person. But empathy is kind of what you're looking for in a conversation with your partner, because what you're trying to do is you're trying to be empathetic to that person. So that must be hard, or that sounds very frustrating, or that must be scary. How are you doing? So what you're doing there is you're keeping the focus on the person you're having a conversation with, rather than turning it back on yourself. Even though we mean well to sympathize with somebody, but over-sympathizing means that the person may be tuning out because you've just turned what they're trying to say to you back on yourself, right? Oh, me too, I'm having a hard time too, and this is what's going on with me, and this is what's going on with me, and this is what's going on with me, and now the other person has checked out because you are not putting the focus on the other person. So being empathetic to the other person's feelings and what they're experiencing is important, okay? Using I statements can help, instead of you always this and you always that and you this and you that. So using some of those blocks to communication can be difficult to continue on a conversation with somebody, because if you ignore or minimize what the other person is telling you, that's a block to communication. Okay, sympathy is a block to communication. Judging somebody is a block to communication. And what that means is that's going to add tension and escalation to the conversation that you're having. So you want to try to use I statements. And the last thing to do sort of is to make sure that you're summarizing. So summarizing at the end, so that make sure that person knows that you've captured everything that you've said to them. So you're summarizing key points of what they've told you about how they're doing, about how they're feeling, about their perspective on the issue that you're talking about. So you kind of summarize at the end. Some things that you shouldn't probably be doing, and I think I mentioned some of them before: moralizing, ignoring the problem, minimizing somebody else's feelings, criticizing, judging, and being too sympathetic are some of the things that you kind of want to steer away from when you're having a conversation. You should take a drink of your coffee like I'm gonna. Okay, so what are we going to do in here? So these are some do's and don'ts that I sort of gave to you. So what can we do in an interest-based, collaborative conversation? Collaboration means that at the end of the conversation, we have both our needs are met. It's a win-win at the end, and we both sort of have a similarity in the interests that we have together in the solution. So that's a collaborative conversation. The thing with collaborative conversations, they're great, but some of the side effects of that could be that they can be very tiring, they could take too long, and they don't have to be, you don't always have to go through them in one night. You may have to take like a couple of times to go through a collaborative conversation, because this is more in depth, in that we want to make sure that when we come to the end of it, we both have our interests met and it's a win-win. Sometimes what might happen is we try to go through a collaborative conversation, but we end up, we end up with a compromise. And that's okay. It's okay to compromise once in a while. That means not all my needs are met and not all the person I'm having a conversation's needs are met, but we've agreed that we can meet somewhere in the middle. That's a sort of a compromise. And sometimes people tend to do that if there's time, like if time is a consideration, they don't have enough time to go through a collaborative conversation, or they're getting fatigued, or they're in a roadblock where they can't come to an agreement. Sometimes people have to end up in a compromise at the end. But what we're trying to do is sort of go through this and sort of see if we can come out the other end, both of us winning. So what you want to do when you're going through a collaborative conversation with your partner is you want to make sure that you have an opening, and you want to make sure that the issue that you're talking about is the issue that you talk about. And you also have to set some ground rules up in advance too as well. So one of the ground rules might be, if things get escalated, because emotions can get high when you're trying to work through issues in the home. So if things tend to escalate, to protect the relationship, can we agree to take a time out and allow each other to be able to say, I can take a time out when I feel I need one, and the person I'm talking to can take a time out. I would stay away from, if you're escalating, you need a timeout. Try to steer away from that. Try to say that it's at a point right now where you feel like that you need to take a timeout, okay? And that you want to take a time in as well is equally important. So if you agree to take a timeout, you have to agree to take a time in. So as you're setting up your guidelines for your conversations, you're looking at escalation, you're looking at timeouts, you're looking at some strategies to protect the relationship while you're having a conversation. Some of the ground rules too might be, you know what, I would like this conversation to stay between you and I. Sometimes outside influences can be helpful, but sometimes outside influences can be not so helpful and can impact the conversation that you're having with your partner. So sometimes you have to agree on some confidentiality around that, that you agree as a partner, as a team, that you'd like to keep it between the two of you. Not to say that you may not need some formal counseling or anything like that. Sometimes when the issues are very tough and very strong, sometimes we need our own personal counseling just in order to address the issue. So I'm not saying you can't go there, but it's that sort of a, he goes to the guys and I go to the girls, or she goes to the girls and she goes to her girls, or whatever the dynamics of the household is, and then we feed each other into some, it's like we end up going into a collaborative conversation, and then it becomes a fight or a competition, a competitive conversation, which we don't want. Again, make sure that you keep it on the issue that you've decided to talk about. Sometimes when we escalate in anger or stress or anxiety as we're having a conversation, it's very easy to bring in past things or issues from the past in order to win that conversation. So we want to make sure that we agree to keep that stuff out, and if it comes in, that you can confidently say to each other, let's push that out. Okay, because sometimes we have more than one issue that we want to work on, but let's sort of keep it on the one that we're working on right now. Another thing you want to keep in mind is you want to focus on the problem, not the person. Again, as things escalate and as emotions get high, because that could happen, we want to make sure that we're not personalizing things with the other person. We kind of want to, let's keep our eyes on the prize. Let's keep our eyes on the problem and not get personal. Okay, so just a reminder to try to do that. And that might be part of your ground rules. So, the first thing we're doing, okay, I'm going to put this down because it's bugging me. First thing you want to do is open an issue conversation, and that's sort of what I just talked about. The second thing you want to kind of do, this is a part where you're allowing each other to have turns, being the speaker and the listener. Okay, so while you're doing that, you're trying to establish common interests. And it's okay to write things down, because as you're writing down what the person is telling you, what their interests are, what their issues are, you may come to find that you have the same issues or the same interests about the issue that you're talking about. So making sure that you're using those active listening skills that I just talked about, and that you're writing down the interests of the person, because when it's time for you to talk, your interests may match the interests of the other person. So the second thing is sort of working through each perspectives, each understanding of the issue, and your interest in the issue. That would be sort of the second thing. And taking time to do this. And while you're doing this, you want to make sure that you refrain from judging the other person's ideas or issues or how they're feeling about the situation. Refrain from that, because what you'll do is that will be a block to communication. So you want to try to stay away from doing that while you're sort of identifying issues, which sort of brings me into the next point. So let's say we've set the ground rules, we've established each other's perspective using active listening, and now we have an understanding of how, some of the issues that have been presented there, and we have an understanding of our interests. The next piece is sort of, now let's brainstorm some solutions. So this is where you get an opportunity for each person to sort of put in their solutions on how you think you could resolve the issue. Again, you have to allow some time and let the other person get out their ideas, like you want to have time to get yours out. And this is at a point too where we're not evaluating what we're brainstorming. Okay, we are just sort of making a list of some of the ideas, some of the options, some of the solutions, some of the ways we want to go about things, and we're writing them down, and we're not evaluating them at this point. When we start going into the evaluation piece after brainstorming, this may take another day, right? So you may decide, okay, now that we've got all the ideas down, let's maybe agree to sort of schedule another time in for us to sort of evaluate the ideas and interests and things that we've come up with, so that we're not too tired to do that. Sometimes too, when we're hearing other people's ideas and perspectives and options and things, we're not necessarily in compliance with them. We may not agree with them, we may not like them. So this is why, if you get a chance, if you have the time, if you can go away from the situation or the conversation for a while and agree to come back in another time and to keep it out of the dynamics. Let's agree that we can park this until this later date and time, and let's continue on in the family without bringing this into it. Let's protect the relationship and leave it over here for another time. Give yourself that time to sort of wash away some of the negative feelings that you might be having about what you've brought up, so that when you come back to the table, you've got your ground rules, you might be fresh, you might be ready and have enough, energy to be able to sort of protect the relationship and go through some of the ideas and options that might best suit both of you. Okay, and here is again where you have to let the other person talk about why something is important to them and why they think this is the solution, and be objective and open-minded to that. So that's sometimes a hard place to go navigate through. Just keep in mind you're trying to protect the relationship, and you both want to win at the end of the conversation. Okay, so you're going to go through some of the options, you're going to evaluate what best suits both of you, and once you come to your understanding, then you have an agreement. Okay, you've agreed that this is the answer, this is how long we're going to try this for, and we both agree. Sometimes we can do it verbally. Sometimes we want to write it down so that we both see it in writing and that we both agree to that. What I like to add into this is a fifth piece, and that's a follow-up component. And sort of say, how about we try this and see how it goes, and in a month or 2 weeks, let's revisit and see how we're doing and see how each other is making out with this. I also like to put in there that if it's really not working for one person, they should have permission to be able to re-raise the issue up again and say, can we go back and reevaluate some of the options that we sort of agreed on or put down on paper, so that, because this isn't working for me, so maybe we can work together to come up with a different solution. Because sometimes, even though we agree at the time, we may start going through that, but we may not feel like it's working very well for us. So don't sit with that. That could add more stress and anxiety, and it can have an impact on communication and the relationship. And you know, when you sit with issues and you sit with your needs being unmet and you sit with things that are bothering you for too long, it does impact your health, it impacts your sleep, it impacts your parenting, it impacts your fitness, it can impact your work. Okay, so if there are things that you're sitting with, try your best to sort of write them down and pick a time when you can raise. As soon as you raise that issue, it's there. And then you remember that you and your partner are on the same team, and that together you're going to try to go through these issues, because you're together as a family, and that means you care about each other and you love each other and you want each other to be happy. So the hardest part I find is raising up the issue, but once you raise it up in a safe way to protect the relationship, you can work through this with your family and your partner to come to an understanding, which can help you sleep better, feel better, parent better, and feel more connected to your partner. I find that, I know for Kenny and myself, back when our kids were all teenagers, we were going through a lot of stress and strain in the family. There were a lot of things going on. So we both we sat at the kitchen table, because we knew that we needed to, and the first thing that we picked out that we thought we might want to work on was parenting. So if we could figure out how to parent teenagers together with being on the same team, this may help the dynamics of the family. And I tell you, it turned our family around 180 degrees. So sometimes you might find that through conversation, you might need other resources to help you sort of with what you're working through. So there are many resources out there, but I'm going to give you some of my top 4 that could be handy for you to sort of get some more information on how to help your family. So our Greenwood Military Family Resource Center, families, they take care of families. And Kim, if you're out there, you remember me coming to you multiple times to get some resources from you guys. I got resources for parenting when my kids were younger, and I got resources from when they were a teenager. And I think some of the partnerships that the GMFRC has with parenting is Robert Beresford. He's another resource that you can turn to as far as getting some parenting tips, if that's what you feel like you need. And as you know, we've been talking a lot about the GMFRC, so if you're not sure about all the resources that they have available, you can go on their Facebook page. You don't have to have a Facebook account to go on their Facebook page. You just go on gmfrc/facebook.ca and you can get on there and see all the wonderful stuff and videos that they're putting out there for you. And you can make contact with Kim Dixon on there. She takes care of parenting classes and things like that. She can help you maybe get some resources to you if you feel like that's what you need. Another one is the Padres or our chaplains, so you can contact them and they may be able to help you work through some family issues together in a safe environment. You don't have to be religious to contact the Padres. The Padres are arm's lengths away from a lot of things. They can't come to your home right now, I don't know the answer right there because of physical distancing and things like that, but they can definitely sit down and have a conversation with you and help you explore through some of the things that you need help with. Mental health, I didn't have enough room to write the whole word, but mental health, if it's with our military members, we have mental health at 5215 on the base, and you can contact them, but you can also get some mental health support through the CAF map. I don't know, you probably can't see me. CAF, can you see me? Oh, CAF map, which I talked about earlier. Peekaboo, it's Wilson. I'm just kidding. CAF map that we talked about earlier. And our defense team members, EFAP is the contact information for that. And then CCMS is our Conflict Complaint Management Services. If you're managing through conflict in your workplace and you're not sure, you're looking for policies, you're looking for support, you're looking for courses, whatever it might be, you can contact them and see they are on the website. They are in the resource pamphlet that I gave you by phone number. I believe they're not in their offices right now. But if you need the numbers of them, you can contact myself. My email and my phone number is on our Facebook page. This is the list of resources that I talked about the last time we got together, okay, that I have. So if you need that, just let me know. So that's my tips for today. That's like throwing you a bone. If you want more intercom, it's a 1.5 day course. If I get enough people who want the whole 1.5 day, let me know. I will work to try to figure out a way to get you all the information. And Intercom is not just a health promotion program. Intercom is actually a partnership between the GMFRC and health promotion, and it was actually put together nationally by Lucy Belanger and the National NFRC as well as the DRC up there, Dispute Resolution coordinators up there. So they've put that information together. Upcoming webinars. So every week we have webinars upcoming. Jeanette's doing a very good job of posting them every Monday on the page or every Sunday on the page there to let you know what the live webinars are for the week. They are from other health promotion managers and specialists, so I encourage you to tap into them if you can. They are live. If you don't have a chance to tap into them at the moment, they are actually recording them and saving them, and Jeanette will be putting something on every Friday to give you some links to the recorded webinars so that you can watch them over the weekend if you want and have some weekend webinars. We had 3 W's for that, but I can't. I don't know. It was weekend webinars anyway, so Jeanette's going to post those for you guys probably tomorrow to give you a couple that have been recorded in the past that you can watch. The next coffee break will be next Thursday, and it will be Jeanette. And she's going to introduce her topic on our Facebook page, so stay tuned to that to find out what Jeanette will be having coffee with you about next week. I encourage you to tune in to our Wing Commander and Wing Chief Facebook town halls. I've been following them. I watch them every time they have them. They're very supportive. They're very good at echoing some of the information we're trying to get out to you as far as the social, mental, and physical health component and resiliency. We've got some great leadership, and they're there every couple of weeks with the town hall taking questions and even trying to find out what thread count for t-shirts are. That's just going way beyond. If you've watched the town hall, you saw the Wing Commander find out what the thread count is for those blue shirts, t-shirts that you guys wear under your uniform. So they go above and beyond. So, tune in, ask questions. It's very informative and very supportive. Also tune in to our recreation department, recreation and communication. They are doing a fabulous job of bringing to you virtual, online fun for your kids, and they're doing all kinds of great stuff on there. So tune into their Facebook page. Tune into our fitness and sports. They are doing an amazing job. Ellie's got a heroic app, heroic training I think it's called, and correct me if I'm wrong, Ellie, but there's all kinds of stuff that they're providing. There's Eric's doing a Tuesday morning thing, and Morgan is doing her thing, and Ellie and Susie, so all of them are doing a fabulous job in bringing you guys exercises into your home and information. Tune in there. And our 14 Wing Community Network COVID-19. That is another website or Facebook page that is actually quite neat to go on. You're getting good information, but you're also getting some jokes and some fun stuff on there. The last joke I read on there were 2 guys were going to fight, and one guy was holding a big block of cheese, and the other guy says to him, "You're not going to fight me with a block of cheese, are you?" And the guy said, "Yes, it's sharp cheddar." Ta-da! I don't know if I thought it was funny. Anyway, and so tune into some of our lovely GMFRC, which I've already mentioned. If there's other Facebook pages out there, please let me know. I will promote those as well for people to go and tune into. Ooh.
Your 3 W's were weekend wellness webinars.
Oh, the 3 W's. Thanks, Jeanette. Weekend wellness webinars, HP. Okay, those are the 3 W's. Thanks, Jeanette. I'm going to leave you with a song that was written. The Wing Commander in Chief likes to leave you a song, so I'm going to leave you with a song. I hope it works out for me. Written by Johnny Reed. So those of you who are from Nova Scotia, you'll definitely know who he is. And those of you who are not from Nova Scotia, across Canada, will know who Johnny Reed is. Most of you will, but if you don't know who he is, his heart is in Nova Scotia. He's a famous songwriter. He wrote a song on behalf of what has been happening in the past week. I'm going to leave you with that song, and to end, have a safe, healthy weekend. Take care of yourself and each other.
Songs. So I'd like to share with you what I'm working on here.
So how does it go?
Hoping it can bring a wee bit of peace. If you give a little more than you take, and if you fix a little more than you break, if you're the kind that takes the time to help a stranger in the rain, there's a place for people like you. If you stand up for those down on the knees, and give a voice to those who cannot speak, if you stay strong for someone and never walk away, there's a place for people like you. I've heard up there the streets are made of gold, and when you get there, there's a hand to hold. I believe when your time down here is through, there's a place up there for people like you. If you walk around with your heart on your sleeve, and if you try to be the change you want to see, if you live your life with a smile and love in every way, there's a place for people like you. I've heard up there the streets are made of gold, and when you get there, there's a